The Angry Marks Podcast Network is brought to you by WrestleWork, a social network to connect, create, and share everything about pro wrestling. Check it out today at WrestleWork.com.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Looking at my watch, it is 18:59 right now.
That's me.
That is him. You know, without further ado, let's get to it. We've got a former WWE World Tag Team Champion on the line. He is Domino himself, Cliff Compton, Mr. 1859. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you guys? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm flattered. I heard that Angry Marks, you said, is a sponsor. They sound very scary to me. They sound scary.
They are
Angry
scary.
Marks. Yeah, they sound like anyone who's angry. I usually stay away from.
Especially marks that are angry, Cliff. We don't want the marks being angry. Then we gotta, they may boycott WrestleMania or something.
Yeah, you don't need them outside San Francisco with picketing signs. No, you don't want that.
That's right. I'm going to do something different tonight. I am going to lead the show off with the Bearded Wonder, Zane Paisley. Zane, what do you have for Mr. 1859?
Well, Cliff, thank you so much for being on the show. We met a couple weeks ago in Indianapolis at the Culture Shock Con. How did you enjoy that?
I thought it was. I had a blast. I was with my buddy Colt, of course, and I actually had fun meeting some of the some people I enjoyed watching growing up. Like Dee Wallace was right across from me, the mother in E.T. So it was pretty exciting, and the guys from Clerks were next to us. So, I'm like a kid in a candy store at those conventions,
Did you have
the guys from who? Hang on, Zane. The guys from who were next to you?
Clerks. Remember that movie?
Oh, Clerks. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Dante Hicks.
Zane, sorry.
And there was all sorts of horror convention types there, and a lot of people dressed up. You can't beat that.
Did you get a chance to meet Tracy Lords?
I didn't, but I saw some of her pictures people were carrying around, and I will say they were pretty risque. But I saw her in the restaurant from a distance. She was very small looking, but she didn't look like she looked when she was 15. That's for sure.
Well, Cliff, once again, thanks for coming on. And when I had an opportunity to meet you, I was wearing, like I am right now, my 18F59 shirt. Can you explain to our listeners how you got the name Mr. 1859?
Yeah, it's a wacky story. Colt Cabana hosts the Art of Wrestling podcast, which I'm sure you all know. And the first episode he had me on was episode 18, which was a long time ago, considering he's in, I think, around 240 now. And so I did 18, and it was I didn't even know what a podcast was, because this is almost 5 years ago now. And Colt just said, "Hey, would you do my podcast?" I said, "Sure." I didn't even know what a podcast was. And then I came back for 59 to tell the trials and tribulations of my Nigeria adventures. And then we were doing an opening like a couple months later with El Generico, or Sami Zayn, whatever you want to call him. And he said, you're 18 and 59. And then I just started calling myself, oh yeah, you might as well call me Mr. 1859. And I was baffled on how it caught on with, Colt's audience, and then people who just knew me. And, it's ridiculous. It's become a t-shirt, but, everywhere I go, there's always an 1859 poster, sign, whatever you want to call it, or a t-shirt. And, it's flattering. And, I think I'm the first guy ever to take two numbers and market them and have so much success with them. So I can't complain.
Well, you said that.
Cliff, did you say it was a podcast from Colt Cabana?
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Yeah, he's on the lower end.
No.
Yeah. Go ahead, ZP. Sorry.
Well, you said that it's a T-shirt. Actually, I went to ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton, and I counted up 35 different T-shirts that you have available on your site, not to mention the hat, the Compton hat, and even our listeners can order a Cliff Compton towel. And
yes.
Also not including on Colt's page there, where it's the over-the-top T-shirt that features you as well. So it's not just one T-shirt out there.
No.
You've spun this into a mass market.
Yeah, there's a plethora of shirts there. There is a beach towel. There is a washcloth. You forgot.
I didn't see the washcloth.
There's a washcloth, a Cliff You Don't Surf washcloth, and they're not all 1859 shirts. We just put out the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is the good is Colt Cabana, the bad is CM Punk, and I'm the Ugly, and that's become one of their best-selling T-shirts, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like a throwback. We're all fans of the spaghetti westerns, so we decided to go with that theme. But yeah, there's all sorts of T-shirts on there, not just 1859, but all sorts of them. And yeah, like you said, ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton. If any shirt you order, you get one of my free DVDs. So that's the deal I offer to all the good people out there.
Well, and I got one of those DVDs. I got the Wake Up Time to Die DVD with Tracy Smothers. And
wow.
Can you let our listeners know some of the hijinks that happen on that? I talked to you briefly about it, about how you didn't want it censored, but High Spots censored it for you.
Yeah, well, if anyone who knows Tracy knows he doesn't have a problem getting naked in front of anyone and everybody. It's just the way he is. Women, if there's women in the locker room, men, that doesn't really matter. So we were in Winston-Salem at WrestleCade, a convention, and he was in the Legends Battle Royal, and we were taping this Wake Up Time to Die episode, and he was the guest, and he said, I got to be in this Battle Royal right after this. Do you mind if I get changed? Now, I didn't really think he was going to get, fully naked, but he gets fully naked on camera, and, Jake Manning, he's filming, and he's on the ground dying laughing, and he is naked, but the High Spots decided to put, I believe, the High Spots logo covering Tracy. It's a very small High Spots logo, but they still cover him up.
Well, and when our listeners do go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton, the DVD that you send them free with their order is autographed by you, correct?
Yeah, it is autographed. And if you don't want the shirt, you just want the DVD, they have them at HighSpots.com. But it's quite the deal because it's a $20 value, and then you get the shirt and the DVD. I like to, if you're willing to buy my shirt, I don't have a problem with giving you a little something extra. So, it's working out for everybody.
Well, can you tell our listeners, who your co-host on the Wake Up Time to Die, series is?
Yes, my co-host is the legendary Freight Train himself. And, he's quite the co-host. He's fallen asleep twice. He fell asleep during Tracy, and he fell asleep during, Sanjay Dutt. So, not because of lack of entertainment during the interviews, just because he told me he was tired. So, I can't hold a grudge.
It's impossible to fall asleep during Tracy Smothers unless you really are tired.
Yeah. He just said it'd been a long drive, and, he dozed off for a split second, but then he woke right up. But that just, it adds to the show aspect, so I can't complain.
Well, how did you hook up with Freight Train and $5 Wrestling?
They were doing a show in, I believe, Charleston, Indiana, right over the bridge in Louisville, and Colt asked me to come down and do some commentary with him and Marty DeRosa, and I wound up getting into a huge fist fight with Big Donnie, and I thought High Spots was going to throw me out and say, don't ever come back. And then instead they said, would you willing to fight Big Donnie on the next pay-per-view? And I said, absolutely. Why not? So that's how I got, hooked up with $5 Wrestling. And then we did the street fight in, Indiana, which was actually pretty successful. The only problem is $5 Wrestling is only $5. So, if you get 1,000 people to buy it, you do the math, whereas if it was $20, but I don't think if it was over $5, anyone would buy it. But, it has a niche audience. People love it. I know people who just watch $5 Wrestling and don't know anything about WWE or TNA or anybody else. I mean, it has a lot of college people watch it, they at the frat house and they get drunk and they do their drugs and whatnot, and they watch Freight Train and Big Donnie and all these other guys, and they just have a blast, but they're not into, the mainstream wrestling. So it definitely has a niche audience, which I find, fascinating.
Well, I have one more question before I'm going to kick it back over to Rick. But you mentioned a street fight in Indiana, but next week you have a big street fight in Illinois. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, I have a huge street fight this Saturday. Chicago Ridge for Ring of Honor against Jay Lethal, the current reigning and defending television champion, although he calls himself the only champion in Ring of Honor, I believe. But yeah, that will be a street fight, and that's going to be one hell of a match. I've wrestled Jay in the past for Ring of Honor, and he's unbelievable, but I think he's a little bit out of his element in a street fight with me. So street fights always tend to be my specialty, so we'll see. He does have the House of Truth with him, Truth Martini and Jay Diesel, so it's a numbers game, but it's going to be a hell of a show. Samoa Joe is returning. It's just going to be unbelievable.
Well, and I saw the promo that you did where you said that you want to be on Ring of Honor TV. So what's the best way to do that? Become the TV champion. They have to put you on TV, right?
Exactly. So I have I guess you could say, a method to my madness. So yeah, I challenged Jay, and he accepted. I don't know if that was smart or bad, but we'll find out Saturday, I guess. And it's going to be fun.
Go ahead, Cliff. Sorry.
Guys, it's going to be fun. Chicago's a very rowdy crowd, very rowdy, and Ring of Honor seems to either love or hate me. So we'll see what happens in Chicago on Saturday.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We're talking to former WWE star Domino. You know him as Mr. 1859 Cliff Compton. And now on the line with us, finally, our other co-host has arrived. The champ is in the house, and it's not the NWA Continental Champion, Morningstar Will Huckabee. It is the Heroes and Legends heavyweight champion himself, Mr. Drew Skills. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on again tonight as a co-host. I apologize. I'm a little late. I was trying to stuff down my dinner real quick there. I apologize.
Hey, Drew, it's okay. We know you're trying to make a massive comeback on trying to catch Troy Miller for most appearances ever on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and, we got to keep getting your notches back in the belt anytime we can, bud.
Right on.
Drew, you're up for Mr. Cliff Compton. What do you have for Mr. Compton from a wrestler's perspective?
Cliff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I don't know if you remember the name, but we did a little bit of business I believe it was the end of last year or early this year. I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember at the bar. It was in a bar.
Yes, in the bar. A lot of fun.
Yeah, nothing but the best for us. The best venues.
Well,
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember Al Snow was on the show.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun working with you, man. I appreciate that. I apologize for being a little late. I'm not sure exactly what these guys have asked you yet, but I want to kind of touch a little bit, on the workers aspect a little bit before WWE. I don't really know the story before. If you could fill us in.
Before WWE, I was like anyone else. I was in the Northeast, and I was training at the Monster Factory in South Jersey, and I was trying to do every independent wrestling show that I could. And I started at 19, and I just kept going. I would drive from Long Island, where I lived, to Georgia, to Delaware, to Virginia, to West Virginia, all over the place, Pennsylvania for office promotion. And then at the time, the place to be was OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. That was the developmental territory at the time, so that was kind of where everyone was wanting to go, but it wasn't that easy to get there. And I was also doing a lot of TNA dark matches when they were still at the fairgrounds and owned by the Jarretts. So I kept busy. I mean, I was definitely a weekend warrior. I came out to OVW for a tryout, and they asked me to come back. Jim Cornette and Danny Davis asked me to come back. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have a contract with WWE or anything. I was, moved here on my own dime and just kept pursuing, I guess you could call it, the dream. And then, eventually I came up with all the Deuce and Domino and Sherry and all those shenanigans. And they wound up, Snuka Jr. was already signed, but they signed me and Sherry. And then I we started doing our thing, and we stayed in OVW for 2 years before we went up to the main roster. But, I mean, that was kind of me before WWE in a nutshell, if that helps. Otherwise, you'd be here for 5 hours.
Right on. I did some of those TNAs down there in Nashville as well. Coming and doing those things and then being on the Indies in the Northeast before, what is your tale on the big differences now, post and pre WWE? What's the difference on the Indies?
I mean, it's always different. I mean, I think the era I was in was different. I think the era, the Attitude Era was different. I think the new generation in the 90s. I mean, every decade is different, and I think the era we're in now is different than we were 5 years ago. It's always changing. I mean, it really is. It's more of a television show now than ever, and they kind of have to constantly be adding new characters because it's just like any other TV show. If it gets stale, you got to mix things up. I think now is a great time for the younger guys to get a chance and an opportunity because they're striving for new talent and they're dying for new superstars. When I started WWE, it was a who's who of main eventers full time. We had The Undertaker, we had Batista, we had Ric Flair, we had Chris Benoit, both Hardys, Edge. I mean, I could go on all night. I mean, so when I got there were still, these huge superstars, and that was just on SmackDown, and that was, SmackDown was still on UPN at that time. So, we had to compete with some heavy hitters, which was cool. It was just very challenging.
Right on. I don't know if you guys touched on it before or earlier, but what was the split? Was it a creative thing or when you left?
I just released my own shoot interview. I talk all about that. You can buy it on cliffcompton.net. But there was some bullshit and some politics that was going on internally between me and my tag team partner in Valet, and there's a reason it fell apart. I don't want to really get into it all here, but it was supposed to go on for a lot longer than it did, and then it just kind of ended and fell very flat. That wasn't what was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be this thing where Maurice, however you say her name, Maurice, I don't know. She started to manage us, and she was going to take us into the future, and we were kind of going to become this different type of tag team, but all that got put on the back burner because of some issues going on internally and all that. It's just, it's what happens. I always tell people being in a tag team is like being in a band. You don't get along all the time. And, looking back, there's probably a lot of things I would have done differently and a lot of things I wouldn't have done differently. So it's, what are you going to do? You got to deal with it. So whatever happens, happens.
Right on, man. You touched a little bit earlier about, the struggle and just doing it and keeping at the grind and trying to make it. And you did that. You've traveled the world and done all kinds of great things. What's on the horizon for you goal-wise? What have you set your goals to obtain?
My current goals or
long-term, short-term?
I don't know. I mean, as long as I'm having fun wrestling, I mean, my goal was to get to WWE, and I was in the tag team, and my goal was to become the tag team champions, and I accomplished that. And that was a huge goal. I mean, getting to WWE is, believe it or not, next to impossible. It's Drew, it's very, very, very hard. So that in itself was a huge accomplishment, and then to go on and win the tag team titles in Milan, Italy, and all that, and wrestle Ric Flair, Batista, and all those guys. That all was, that was my goal, and I achieved it all. So it was like, all right, wow, and then after that's all over, I said, I'm just going to keep wrestling until I don't want to do it anymore. And my body's still holding up and I'm still going strong. So a few people still want to see me. So I guess I'll still keep going.
Well, for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. There's a big match Saturday night in Chicago with Jay Lethal. We'll see what happens if I come out victorious. Who knows?
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We're talking to none other than Domino, Cliff Compton himself. Cliff, I was just thinking about you're talking about training with the Monster Factory, and we've had a lot of Monster Factory alum that joined the show, including Danny Cage himself. What made you pick that particular training center over? Obviously, it was close to home, but was there a specific reason why Monster Factory?
I narrowed it down to 3. It was either going to be Killer Kowalski's, the Monster Factory, or Johnny Rod. And I went with the Monster Factory because they had a pretty good track record of guys they trained, and that was the reason. They had a great track record, and I, called Larry, and he offered me a tryout, and the rest is history. And I still do Monster Factory shows. I know Danny Cage very well, and Danny's running the Monster Factory now, and he's an excellent businessman. He's really turned the Monster Factory into something much better than it was. You know what I mean? He's doing a phenomenal job.
So did you get to do any training with my buddy Grey Wolf?
I've met Grey Wolf. I didn't do any training with him. He was on some of the shows we were on.
Oh, I gotcha. Very
cool. I know Grey Wolf, though.
When you were partnered in the tag team, and obviously you had great success, you had a good run with it, in your opinion, when you come out of places like OVW as a tag team and being brought up to the main roster as a tag team, do you feel you kind of have a shelf life, a shorter shelf life with the tag team as opposed to being, established as a singles wrestler? And then when they do finally break it up, is it much harder to get yourself over as a singles wrestler?
It depends. It depends on where your tag team was at. With Deuce and Domino, it was, at the time we broke up, we weren't the focal point as much as we were in the previous month. So people weren't really, people didn't really care that much that we were breaking up because we weren't really doing much on TV. It's all what you see on TV. If, you're in a prominent role on TV, people care. If you're not, okay, they just see you as filler. And that's at the time we were kind of just floating on SmackDown. So when we broke up, everyone was kind of like, So had we broken up 6 months prior, it would have been a lot more of a bigger deal, I think. But I knew what was going on, and I knew why I think certain things were happening. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I really can't complain. I'll always be proud of Deuce and Domino and happy with what it was. It's just, once they do break you up and you are in a tag team, it just depends on how they push you as a singles wrestler. If they want to put the machine behind you and give you that push, then you're going to be all right, or at least you're going to be given a good opportunity to capitalize on. And if you're not, you just kind of being thrown around week to week and, losing and winning some, well then, no one's going to really care. You know what I mean?
All right. Cliff, did you ever get a reason why they decided to change your team from the Untouchables to Deuce and Domino?
Yeah, they thought the Untouchables, it had to do with the movie, and they looked at the Untouchables as people from the 20s and 30s as opposed to the 50s. And that's not why I chose the name. I just chose the name because I liked the name. So I tried to explain that to them, but they just said, we think the audience, which the majority of the audience was, at that time, they were saying teenagers. I don't think they would know the movie anyway. So,
right.
They were thinking of calling us the Throwbacks, which I wasn't a big fan of, and then they decided to go straight with Deuce and Domino. So, they put the axe on the Untouchables. They just said, it reminds us of the movie, and it reminds us of gangsters and all that, which I can understand.
So in all your tag teaming with Deuce, who do you feel you have the greatest chemistry with as far as opponents? I mean, you had a who's who of tag teams that you guys faced in the ring, but was there any one team you felt you guys really gelled with and were able to connect in the ring?
I think we worked unbelievably well with Kendrick and London, just because I probably wrestled them 200 times. We did some overseas matches with them that were just off the charts, non-televised stuff, and then we did do some televised stuff. I thought we had some really good matches with Matt Hardy and MVP. Jesse and Festus, we could have done so much more with, but they just decided not to pull the trigger on it. We did stuff with Flair and Batista, which went unbelievable. There wasn't really anyone I didn't like working with, but I would say, we worked with Kendrick and London so many times. I think some of our matches were really good. I really do. We did stuff with the Major Brothers. That's, for those who don't know remember them, that's now Zack Ryder or was Kurt Hawkins. But, there were some talented tag teams back then, really talented.
So when you finally did leave the E, I guess, and you had your tryout for TNA, was there any talk? Did you have any negotiations with TNA, or did it kind of just come and go and nothing of it?
I've had many talks with TNA over the years, but nothing's ever panned out. They had interest in me for that Aces and H thing, and I've done dark matches. It's just never, nothing's ever come of it. A lot of my friends work there, some still do. But no, I've never, I just, for some reason or whatever, it just hasn't clicked.
So what's your current, I guess, status with ECW, with Ring of Honor? I don't know why I always do that every show. Ring of Honor, are you still, a free agent with them and still wrestling for them, or have you moved on from there, or what's going on with them?
Well, after Saturday night, if I'm successful against Jay Lethal, I think you'll be seeing a lot more of me in Ring of Honor. So it is a proving ground match, and if I am victorious, I will face him, I believe. I don't know if it's that night or if it's at a different time, but we'll see what happens. I'm a big fan of Ring of Honor. I think Ring of Honor has the, without a doubt, best live wrestling experience out there today. As far as fans and in the ring action goes, it's just a step above the rest, in my opinion.
What's your thoughts, I guess, on Alberto El Patron making his appearances now for Ring of Honor, and also hitting Lucha Underground too? So he's obviously all over the place. But what kind of a boost do you think that's done for the promotion?
I think it's good. I think Ring of Honor has a lot of diversity now, where it used to always be that same style of high-flying action. I think you get a little bit of everything now. You still, of course, get that hard-hitting flipping and diving and all that, and then you get other stuff like they recently had ODB in there, and they have
right.
Alberto, and I think they're starting to give the fans a lot more than just the same stuff, and I think that's been a positive, because they're selling out everywhere, and numbers are up across the board. So they bring in a crazy guy like me, so it goes to show you they're definitely the diversifying.
So when you watch WWE, I guess on the tube today, are you liking what you're seeing, Cliff? Or are you as disappointed, I guess, as the ICW is with the WrestleMania card? I guess, what's your thoughts on the current television we're getting from WWE at the moment?
I don't watch that much, but it just kind of seems like they're on cruise control, I guess you could call it. I think a lot of it has to do with lack of competition, so they kind of do whatever they want, but it just, when I go to indie shows, and I do a lot of indie shows, the fans they don't seem to be happy with what's going on. And, a lot of the fans tell me that they don't like the current stuff they see. They think there's too much talking and all that. But, it's, I don't know. I think they're in a transition period, to be honest with you. I think, a lot of the guys who've been around for a long time are finally starting to go away and hang it up, and people got to get used to the new guys, and that'll come with time.
I think you made a really good point about transition, because I think we were talking about not only the wrestlers themselves, but what about the upper management, as we see things starting to shift from Vince McMahon over to Triple H. We see the rise of NXT. How prominent, I guess this is something I keep nonstop seeing on Facebook and Twitter or whatever, nonstop, that Vince McMahon will force feed whoever he wants to be the star down your throat, whether you like it or not. Is that accurate, Cliff? Is that something, is he really that stubborn in his business approach that if people don't want Roman Reigns or whomever it may be, he's going to keep shoving it down the throat anyway?
There might be some truth to that. I think I think if you look at, you talk about the internet audience and the internet crowd, they tend to frown upon a lot of stuff, and that's not the vast majority of Vince's audience. The vast majority of his audience is parents taking their kids to the shows, and then they'll buy some shirts, they'll buy some whatever, and then they'll go home. They won't jump on the internet, and they won't read about all that all that negativity and all that stuff. I think Vince caters to the masses, and the internet audience is a very small percentage of the 4 million people that watch Raw on a Monday night. A lot of those people, I'm not knocking the internet, but they don't follow wrestling that religiously. So I think Vince McMahon is catering to the masses. Roman Reigns, he gets a lot of people tend to say he's not the guy, but you can't fight City Hall. If Vince McMahon wants you to be the guy, what are you going to do? Say no? You know what I mean? You can't really say no, and I think Vince will run that company till he dies, and he'll do what he wants. He's got a pretty good track record, and it is what it is. Maybe they'll pull back on Roman and give someone else a chance. I don't know, but they have to make new stars, and they have to experiment and see what works and what doesn't, and maybe they'll learn from this, or maybe Roman will start to do better. And I think Roman I don't think he's bad at all. I think he gets a bad rap.
I don't either. I think he gets a bad rap. He's not nearly as bad of a wrestler as everybody makes him out to be. And I've never been one of those guys to knock wrestlers. I just think Vince loves the giant 6'5" muscled up guy, and that's what Roman is. He's very marketable looking, and it is a business at the end of the day. A lot of people forget that. It's about selling tickets and selling merchandise and all that stuff. And Roman's a guy that obviously Vince believes can do that. And it's all about dollars and cents. So he's got to get that money, keep that money coming in, or there won't be a WWE. So, there's a lot of very smart people up there. So, I would just see what happens. Cliff, before I kick it back over to the Bearded Wonder himself, I want to shoot another one to you. You have been all over the place. You've wrestled, oh, good grief. I mean, you tell me where you haven't wrestled, I guess. In your ventures, if you had to start your own promotion right now, Cliff, what 4 individuals would you use as your cornerstones of your promotion?
Oh, man. What 4 wrestlers?
All the talent that's out there today.
I think you can't go wrong.
You make your choice. Is it veterans, or is it going to be all new guys? You make that call. If you're Cliff Compton, the promoter, who's your 4?
There's a lot of talent out there that no one even knows exists. I think you can't go wrong with a Colt Cabana. I think he's your modern day Junkyard Dog. I think he's just the one the fans absolutely love. He's the fans love him. He can do no wrong. I think he's a guy. I think Kevin Steen's another guy who's just a tremendous talent. I think CM Punk I always put in the category as like a modern day Randy Savage. And that's 3 right there. And I guess the 4th could be could just about be anybody, a wild card. But I think those 3 guys I think are just 3 guys that could be in the main picture of a WWE or any promotion really, just because they have, they all have such unique qualities to them, and they all have money drawing capabilities, in my opinion. And that's what it's all about. The WWE will look at somebody and say, can this guy draw us money? That's all they care about. It's a business to them. You know what I mean? It's a business before anything else. It's, can this guy put asses in the seats? And, Vince likes guys who are going to turn heads in airports. Roman Reigns is going to get people talking. Oh, who is that guy? He looks familiar. Oh, he's a WWE wrestler. He wrestles on Monday nights. Oh, really? Whereas if he has, that's what Vince likes. That's why he's had so many giants over the years. You can knock Great Khali all you want, but everywhere he goes, someone says, who is that? And someone says, that's a WWE wrestler. And that's just free promotion right there. That's the way, it's like the circus almost.
We are the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and we have the privilege of talking to Domino Cliff Compton. And we're going to kick it back over to my good old buddy, the bearded wonder himself, Zane Paisley. Zane, take it.
Well, Super Domino, thank you once again for coming to talk with us this evening. I wanted to plug cliffcompton.net. You can access that and get the Twitter account at Cliff Compton or at CliffComptonNet. Also Facebook. There's a Cliff Compton Facebook page and a cliffcompton.net Facebook page as well. Hit up the ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton and also highspots.com. Get all your Cliff Compton. You'd mentioned that your new shoot interview is available there on your website, cliffcompton.net. You can actually get a physical DVD or you can get a download of it now too, correct?
Yeah, you can get a download of it. That's on through High Spots. I recommend the actual DVD, but you can download it. VOD, Video on Demand. That you can find on my Twitter account at Cliff Compton. I'll have the link up there. All the links are on at Cliff Compton.
Well, and one of
you have to get the DVD clips. You have to get the DVD so you can get your autograph. You can't autograph a download.
Exactly. There you go.
And you also do have coming up this weekend, Saturday night, in Chicago Ridge, Illinois, taking on Jay Lethal in a Chicago street fight. Now, you mentioned a couple friends that are from Chicago. You mentioned Colt Cabana and CM Punk. We all know that you're friends with those guys. And who would our listeners be surprised that you're friends with in the wrestling world?
I think a lot of people be surprised. You have a lot of friends. I mean, my real friends I've met in wrestling. And, you have your acquaintances, but guys, I'm friends with Punk or Phil, as I call him, and Colt a lot. I'm friends with Luke Gallows. A lot of those guys. Stuff I do adventures with, like the Road Diaries and stuff. Everyone's got their own friends and their own little cliques and stuff. It's hard to trust some people in wrestling because everyone's always competing for that spot, so you always got to kind of watch your back.
Well, one person that you're friends with, Sex Ferguson, a.k.a. Luke Gallows.
Everybody loves Sex Ferguson.
He's doing a few things over in Japan. Have you ever thought about going over to New Japan Pro Wrestling and being part of the Bullet Club?
It sounds good. I just don't think it's that easy. I don't know what the
and hop on a plane and go over there.
Yeah, if it was that easy, I would, but I don't know if it's I think there's quite the waiting list for the Bullet Club right now.
Did you hear that?
Heck, Cliff, if the NWO can have 50 members, certainly they can have one more.
I think they're getting close, actually. Yeah.
Did you hear the news today that the WWE is trying to trademark the Too Sweet hand gesture?
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know you can. That's like tweeting. That's like trademarking the middle finger. How can you trademark a symbol?
Well, see, someone had asked me that, and I remember that Jay-Z paid Diamond Dallas Page so much money for the diamond hand signal because both of them are using it, but Page proved that he was using it first. So
wow.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on the internet, and so I'm not sure how you do all that. But
they had a picture, Zane. I don't know if you saw the picture on Facebook a while ago. I don't know. It might have been Twitter, where the Young Bucks were had them shown themselves doing the Too Sweet and said, "You better get a look at this. You may not get to see it much longer," or something like that.
You never know.
Wow, and that's in a whole other part of the world too. I didn't know.
Right.
That's craziness.
How do you KFC?
How do you KFC? Oh man, that was quite the ride. That was very unexpected, but a lot of fun.
I was just shocked that, and I rewatched. I've seen it a few times, especially when it first came out. It's already up to 900,000 views on YouTube. So I'm sure for too much longer, it's going to be over 1 million views. I'm just surprised that they let you wear your Cliffy Don't Surf shirt in that.
Yeah.
a KFC or Colonel Sanders shirt.
Yeah, no, they're owned by the Yum Corporation, and I had to sign off saying that I could wear the shirt and that I wouldn't ask for anything in return. So it was that's how that works. It was there's definitely some legal contract waiver type of deal with that. It wasn't just, you can wear your shirt, because they were worried I was going to ask for all this money or something like that. But at the end of the day, I was just, it's a KFC commercial. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was great.
Yeah, that was almost a year ago, believe it or not, a little less.
Cool. Before we let you go for the night, Cliff, I'm going to ask you one more here real quick. And I don't want you to give away anything or betray any of your friends or anything of the sort, but when do you personally feel that we will see Mr. Punk in a UFC ring?
By the end of the year, for sure.
Think so?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think you'll see Brock Lesnar in there by the end of the year, too. But,
that'd be a nice main event, wouldn't it?
I think they'll announce Punk's first fight probably in the next few months, and it'll definitely be this. It'll definitely be this year. I would say more towards the end of the year.
For Domino, Cliff Compton tonight, Drew, did you have any others?
No, man. Just want to thank you for coming on and say once again, man, I had a great time working with you, man.
Yeah, anytime, Drew. Always a pleasure.
Well, Domino, Cliff Compton, we want to thank you on behalf of the Undisputed Wrestling Show for joining us tonight. We had a great time talking to you, and hopefully we can have you again on sometime as when you become ROH television champion.
We'll see what happens Saturday. It's going to be pretty brutal.
Zane, anything in closing for you, buddy?
Oh, well, no, just Cliff, if you can give everybody your social media sites. Just when I talked to you at the Culture Shock Con, I'd mentioned to you, I'd introduced myself and let you reminded you that you were going to be on our show, and you said, "Oh, podcast, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm gonna a little nervous. I'm not." And then you told me that you were just fucking with me, so that was
yeah.
But we all know CliffCompton.net, but you want to throw anything, and ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton. You want to throw anything else out there?
Just at Cliff Compton on Twitter is the best way to keep up with me.
Okay. Well, until next time you go to Nigeria, tell Power Udi that we want him on our show.
Of course, I'll tell him. I'm sure he'd love to come on. If he calls you, his phone number is about 33 numbers long. Yeah.
All right, Cliff. What do you say in closing to all your fans listening to this show as we speak?
Tell them wake up, time to die, and tune in Saturday, or go. I'd actually go to Chicago Ridge in Chicago. It's going to be one hell of a show with Ring of Honor.
Rock on.